Hello, everyone. So, Thanksgiving is quickly approaching, and I wanted to discuss how to navigate holiday meals. Now, this first section, I'm going to be kind of addressing those who are in what we're going to call the maintenance phase of their health, those who are looking to make health conscious choices about, holiday meals, but still enjoy the holiday overall, not stress too much, not be bringing all their own food. If you're looking for accommodations and options like that, please stay tuned. I'm going to go over that too. This is just more mindful eating tips is going to be what we're focusing on first. So, as the holidays approach and we have tons of amazing indulgent foods, I want you to work on breaking free from the idea of saving your calories for whatever, whether that's dessert, whether that is casseroles, whether that is dinner rolls. I want you to get that mindset out of your brain. Just get it out of there. Instead of labeling foods as good and bad, I want you to view them as fueling and fun. So, fueling foods are your proteins, your fats, your fruits, your vegetables. These provide nourishment to our bodies and give us the necessary fuel that we need to be able to function optimally. Fun foods like our desserts, our breads, our, more carb heavy things like mac and cheese, these are nourishing to the soul. That's why we call it soul food. That's why we call it comfort food. Both of these foods are important. One's not good, one's not bad. Both are important. They are just important in very different ways. During the holiday season, I would say try to keep a balance of roughly 80% of your nourishing foods and 20% of your fun foods to help ensure that our body gets both what it needs to have our body function optimally and have our soul be satisfied. So, we're going to talk about that balance a little bit. When we get stuck in the mindset of, I need to save my calories for later, like the big meal is not till later, I gotta make sure I stay within my limit. What happens is we end up starving ourselves, and then when that big meal rolls around, we are blindsided by hunger. We're smelling everything, we can see it out in front of us, blindsided by hunger. All the thoughts we had of, oh, I'm gonna choose this, oh, I'm gonna choose this, oh, I'm gonna be good, goes out the window. Because we haven't eaten anything all day. We're so hungry. All you're going to do is crave those fun foods only, and you're going to be likely to overeat and just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to pop. I ate so much. And then we either feel awful because we overate, or we have an energy crash and we're just like, all I want to do is go to bed. All I need to do is take a nap. Like, I can't do anything until that has happened. So eating nourishing foods in anticipation for that big meal is going to decrease the chances that you overeat and help to maintain that balance of fuel and fun throughout your day. And so another thing I want to touch on is over restriction. So over restriction is a big, big, big issue, especially around the holidays. Swearing to yourself that you are not going to be bad and relying on willpower to get you through, even though all these amazing foods are on the table and you see them and they're in front of you and you could get them if you wanted to, and you are smelling them and you're watching your family and friends get these foods. What that causes is for us to be upset and jealous, especially when we see other people that can, get away with being bad, not have to pay for it, that sort of thing. This severe restriction usually leads to, one, to us just being in a bad mood, two, to us maybe not wanting to participate in holidays at all just because we don't want to have to use our willpower and we just, get in a bad mood. And three, and probably most common, it leads to to what I call the restrict binge cycle. So this is when, you overly restrict the whole day. You tell yourself, oh, I'm only going to eat vegetables. I'm not going to touch any dessert. I'm not going to have anything bad. I'm only going to have vegetables on my plate. And then when that doesn't happen and we try a little bite of something, we are filled with guilt and shame. And we tend to be like, well, I already messed up. Might as well have more of this and more of this. The day is already ruined. Might as well go ahead and do that. Or we restrict the whole day, and then when no one's looking, sneak into the kitchen, have a little bite, you end up binging and going kind of crazy. And you just feel awful. Or again, you feel ashamed, embarrassed, guilty, that sort of thing. And so that's usually followed by, if we have binged, the next day we're like, oh, I was so bad yesterday. So today I'm going to make up for it by not eating anything or only eating salad, only eating vegetables, drinking tons and tons and tons of water. And I'm going to go to the gym for 2 hours. I'm going to go run 5 miles or something like that. We immediately feel like we need to punish ourselves to make up for the choices we made before. I want you to know that this mindset is so harmful, and it is such a skewed vision of what making healthy choices looks like. Starvation, we should never withhold food as a punishment just because maybe we made some choices before that we're not happy about. We should never use exercise as a punishment for food choices or stuff like that. I want you to know that you are in control. And even if you feel like you're not, even if you're in that moment, when you feel like you cannot stop eating, you are in control by, at the next meal, once that is over, whether you could feel like you could stop the binge or not, once it is ended, you are in control by making the choice at the next meal or the next day to choose fueling, nourishing foods that are going to give your body what it needs. You are in control by choosing to care for your body, not choosing to starve it to make up for yesterday. You are in control by choosing to exercise just as a form of movement and activity, not as a punishment. The choices you make in one day, don't let that spiral out of control and be a continuous problem. You are in control by taking the time to be like, yes, yesterday, maybe I had more of the foods that I shouldn't have, or maybe I ate more than I intended, or own it and say, yeah, yesterday I kind of, I might have eaten too much, but it was good and it was worth it. And it was so delicious and it was great. And I don't regret it at all. But you can choose and you can control what you do following that, so that we're not getting into a spiral of unhealthy eating patterns, unhealthy dietary choices, and an unhealthy mindset towards health overall. And so now I'm going to talk about kind of some tips for maintaining this balance and kind of being mindful of our choices, especially around the holiday season. So tip number 1, and what I would consider the most important, is please do not wait to eat. Don't wait. Do not restrict the entire day and then end up overeating and end up binging and getting into that cycle that we just talked about. So a lot of times Thanksgiving meal, it could be 3, it could be at 4, it could be 5 or later. Don't eat, or don't eat. Don't wait to eat until that point. Have a good, hearty, fueling breakfast. So a breakfast that is filled with prioritizing proteins and fats. So if this looks like, a couple eggs and some bacon or some sausage, and I'm not talking one egg, I'm talking multiple eggs, could be an omelet with lots of veggies. It could be a smoothie that you add some protein powder to, something you want to make sure you're getting in. a good amount of protein and fats. That is what's going to keep you satisfied throughout the day. Now, lunchtime rolls around, and let's say your big meal is going to be around 3 or 4. You don't want to eat a big lunch because you want to have room, for this big meal that you've had anticipation for. I understand that. I get that. I'm not telling you to eat a big lunch, but my request is going to be that you eat a snack. If you truly feel like you're not hungry and that when that rolls around, you aren't going to be, absolutely starving, then don't eat anything. That's fine. You know yourself better than I do. However, if you are like, oh, I'm not that hungry, but you have that inkling that you're going to be really, really hungry when it's finally time to eat, please eat a snack. Something small. Don't go crazy. Just eat a snack. Whether that is a handful of nuts, whether that is, if someone's made a charcuterie board and there's meat and cheese on there and some nuts, you have a little bit of that. Have a little bit of fruit with that. Have an apple with some nut butter. If someone has made deviled eggs, have some of those. If you want to bring with you, a cleaner ingredient protein bar. If you want to bring with you meat sticks, if you want to bring hard-boiled eggs, do something, have something small just to satisfy you and tide you over so that when it is dinner time or time for your big Thanksgiving meal, that you aren't starving, but you're not stuffed either. You have an adequate appetite. You could wait longer to eat, but you're happy to eat then as well. Tip number 2, I want you to kind of work on balancing your plate. And so try to make it, let's say, 80% of your filling foods, your more nourishing foods. So this is going to be your proteins. This is going to be your fats. This is going to be your, fiber-filled carbs. So that's your veggies, stuff like that. Let me give you an example. You're looking at most of your plate being turkey, vegetables, whether that be salad, whether it's someone has made green beans or someone's got some roasted vegetables, a little bit of mashed potatoes in there as well. That's all great for your more fueling foods. Now, for your fun foods, again, we're trying to make this about 20%. So this is where I want you to have a little bit of your favorites, whether that's a roll, whether that is baked mac and cheese, piece of pie, something like that, any of those, we want to have more of our nourishing and fueling, and quite a bit less of our fun foods, but we still want to have both. We don't want to completely restrict and cut out either. Okay. That's my emphasis. Don't tell yourself, oh, I can't have dessert. I can't have this. And be realistic. Don't give like the teeniest, tiniest sliver. So we're pretty much having a taste because you're going to want a little more. So just kind of like make sure you visualize that when you're building your plate. This goes into tip number 3. Fill your plate with foods that you actually want to eat. Now, what I mean by this is like when you're looking at all the options laid out in front of you, let's say there is turkey, there is ham, there are green beans, there's Brussels sprouts, there's dressing, and there is baked mac and cheese. Now you only really like turkey, you really like green beans, and you really like baked mac and cheese. So only get those. Don't fill your plate with everything just because it's there. Only get what you really like. Now, I know this isn't going to fly in every situation. Some people are going to be like, oh, come on, please just try, blah, 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 and they're like not going to let you not try it. Okay, in that situation, get literally a bite. If you really don't want it, literally get just a bite to be like, yep, I tried it. Good job. Or tried it. Not the biggest fan, but I see why other people like it, that sort of thing. But if you're in a situation where no one's pressuring you, then just don't get the foods that you don't like. Because if we get those things of like, you can take or leave Brussels sprouts. You don't hate them, but you don't love them. I would just say, honestly, forget that and double the green beans instead because you actually really like it. Because you might get down to eating your plate and you circle back around to those Brussels sprouts and you're just kind of like, I don't want any more. And so then you either force yourself to eat it because you don't want to waste food, or you did kind of like waste the food. Either way, it's just not great. I would rather you, um, have a double portion of turkey or a double portion of green beans because you don't like ham and because you don't like Brussels sprouts, rather than just kind of pick around at them, eat a little bit, and then be like, I don't really want it. Tip number 4, hear me out here, is save room for dessert. I know that sounds a little crazy, like, Julie, what are you saying? But what I mean by this is if there's a dessert that you really, really, really want, and you're not doing any kind of like accommodation of like a healthier version, you want the real deal, or your grandma makes the best version of the world and you only get it at Thanksgiving, that sort of thing. This level of food, whether it's dessert, whether it's bread, whether it's casserole, anything, then save room for it. Kind of like budget it out on your plate. So in that 20% of fun foods, make sure you budget that dessert or whatever it may be, but we're going to talk about dessert for this example. Make sure you budget that dessert to be in there, so that you have room in your stomach to eat it with your meal. Now, why am I saying this? What is the point of that? Well, let's say you don't budget your dessert and you fill your plate and you have your dinner and you get to the end of that and you're like, man, I'm stuffed. You're not like about to explode, but you're like, man, I'm really full. I want that dessert, but not right now. I'm going to have it in an hour or so. The reason I don't want you to do that is if you eat that dessert on its own, by itself, nothing else, it's going to spike your blood sugar. And that blood sugar spike is what's going to cause you to have an energy crash. So I would say either kind of budget it into your dinner to where you're kind of stopping kind of your main meal when you're, let's say, 75% full. You could eat some more, but you don't feel like you have to. That's when I want you to stop with that and switch to your dessert. Because eating your proteins first and your fats first and your veggies first kind of makes a barrier in your body that's going to slow down the impact that super sugary dessert has on your blood sugar, and thus decreasing the chance of a huge blood sugar spike and energy crash. Now, if you just don't want to do that and you do want to have your dessert later, I would just say pair it with something. Pair it with some fat or some protein first. So if it's like you sneak a little bit of turkey before your dessert, or you sneak a little bit of ham, or you sneak a little bit of, maybe those leftover finger foods or appetizers, have something that has some protein or fat with that dessert. Again, have it first, have the dessert right after, to kind of lessen the impact of that blood sugar spike. Okay, but generally, I would say try to budget it in with your dinner. Tip number 5 is going to be try not to eat with your eyes or your nose, for that matter. It's really, really easy to overfill your plate when all the options are laid out in front of you and you see everything and you smell everything, and it smells so good. And especially if you've been in anticipation of this meal all day and people have been working on it for hours and everything looks incredible, smells incredible. I want you to try your best to start with small portions, not for the sake of portion control necessarily, not for the sake of restriction, literally just so that you are more mindful of am I evaluating? Am I really hungry enough to finish this? Because here's what happens. If we eat with our eyes and we eat with our nose, we go through and we're plopping a spoonful from everything, and you sit down to eat, you're like, man, I'm so hungry. And you eat one thing and you eat a couple bites of another thing, and you're like, man, I'm already full. And you still have this plate filled with food. And then you're kind of sitting there like, I don't want to waste this food. I don't, people put a lot of work into this, or these are all good foods. I don't want to have them go to waste. Or, I don't want people to ask, why didn't you eat more or whatever. Or it's not going to be, it's not going to be as good if it's leftovers. So I want you to go ahead and avoid that by starting with just a little of this, a little of this, a little of this, a little bit, like, get less than you think you want to start. And then once you've finished all that, then evaluate, okay, how hungry am I really? Do I feel like I'm going to be hungry in an hour? If so, get more. By all means, go get more. If you are at the point where you're like, I'm not completely full. I could eat a little more, but if I did, I would probably be like, oh, then I want you to stop there. That's a good place to stop. It's going to make sure you avoid being uncomfortably full and feeling lethargic and sluggish. But yeah, if you still feel like you are genuinely hungry, go get another plate. Get more of the foods that you like. That leads me to my next point, number 6. If there are foods that you love and you want, but you just do not have the room in your stomach for, don't be afraid to ask for them as leftovers. If you've been eyeing a piece of pie all night, or it is your grandma's famous recipe and you want to be able to get some, but you're not hungry for it right now, say, hey, can someone save me a piece? Can it be wrapped up and put in the fridge? Be wrapped up and frozen? Can I borrow a Tupperware so I can take this home and I'll return it to you? Or bring a Tupperware in anticipation of wanting to ask for leftovers. Kind of prepare for that. And I want you to save it and eat it when you can actually enjoy it and enjoy the flavor and the effort that was put into making it, rather than, stuffing it down when we're already full and then not really being able to enjoy it because you're just kind of like, oh, I regret doing that, that sort of thing. So don't be afraid to ask for leftovers. Don't be afraid to bring a container to be like, look, I'm already prepared, so I'm just going to pack some of this for later, that sort of thing. Now, switching gears, I'm now kind of speaking to the people who are at the unstressing and healing phase of their health journey, or those of you who are just looking to continue to make as best choices as they can, make accommodations during the holiday season. So for those in the unstressing and healing stage right now, I am not saying that you shouldn't indulge at all. However, you know yourself better than anyone. You know yourself better than me and any of the recommendations I could give you. You know yourself better than your family. You know yourself better than your friends. So listen to your body, please. Please, please, please. Because at this stage, your body might not be able to handle some of these favorite foods, some of these amazing foods that we get once a year. No matter how much you love them, the fact of the matter is your body might just not be able to handle that. And I know how much it sucks to have to skip out on your favorites or make accommodations that just aren't the same. It sucks. I've been there. I've had to do it multiple times. It's just not fun knowing that it's not the real deal, even as close as it might be. But you know what also sucks? Being in pain, being extremely bloated, being unable to get off the toilet, being unable to go to the bathroom, having a horrible headache or migraine, having an acne flare-up, having an eczema flare-up, you name it. being riddled with aches and pains. That is worse than not being able to have grandma's pumpkin pie, in my opinion. You might disagree, and then that's where I want you to use your discretion. But I would say generally, most people are going to kind of say that pain and that sickness and that just physical, like, oh, I feel awful, is worse than having to give up something. And again, this isn't forever. You don't have to say goodbye to these foods forever. It's temporary. Just as we get your body unstressed and able to heal itself again, putting in the work to make those choices of the right nutrients and the right care for yourself will help you to strengthen your body so that you do reach the point where Thanksgiving rolls around again one year and you are able to have the real deal of the foods that you love and your body's able to handle it without having to go to the bathroom instantly or being bloated like crazy or having a migraine, of all those things. So I just want you to know that it stinks right now. It really does. But it's not forever. And, the hope is that you're putting in this work, you're investing in yourself to heal yourself. And eventually you'll get to the point where you can enjoy these fun foods without, suffering consequences or paying for it, that sort of things. You can truly enjoy it and then move on and go back to your, keep that balance of your nourishing foods and your fun foods. But thankfully, there are swaps that can be made for most items, accommodating to most dietary restrictions. And while I'm not going to tell you that it tastes the exact same or anything like that, they can be pretty darn good. You can get pretty similar. And even just the flavor profile being similar can be enough to be like, oh, this feels like Thanksgiving. This feels like fall. So if you are in need of some Thanksgiving recipes to accommodate your dietary restrictions, I have created a free recipe ebook with an entire Thanksgiving menu of healthier options. I'm talking appetizer, main dish, sides, dessert, the whole shebang. So all the recipes are free from wheat, oats, corn, soy, gluten, rice, sprouted grains, and commercial fats and oils, so like your seed oils, that sort of thing. None of that's in there. All the recipes in the book have substitutions to be made dairy-free, to be made free of natural sugar. They're all free of refined sugar. I don't think I mentioned that, but to be free of any natural sugar. And only one recipe has beans or legumes. So if that's something you can't have, you can just skip that one. If you would like my ebook, you can either, ask about it next time you're in the office. You can give us a call and say, hey, could y'all send me that? We'll kind of put you on a list, get you that info. You can email me. My email is julie@nutrition-houston.com. Email me and say, hi, can I have that ebook? And I'll send it to you. And I think don't quote me on this. I think we're going to work on maybe trying to get it out on our Facebook page, that sort of thing. But yeah, just reach out and say, hey, I would love that ebook, and I will send it to you. And then for any additional ideas, if you look over that and you're like, I don't like any of this, her taste is terrible, I respect that. So additional ideas, the internet is going to be your best friend, especially Pinterest, especially Pinterest. So type in whatever dietary restrictions you need, whether that needs to be dairy-free, nut-free, gluten-free, paleo, keto, any of that, and then followed by Thanksgiving recipe. And I am 99% sure things are going to pop up and give you tons of options. And, for those of you who are needing to avoid grains and nuts and seeds, because a lot of your grain-free things tend to use like your almond flour, your nut flours as a replacement. If you need to avoid grains and nuts and seeds, search for recipes that use cassava flour, which is also called yuca, or it's called, tapioca flour, and or recipes that use coconut flour. I know coconut has a nut in it, but coconut is actually a fruit. Um, the flour is made from the dehydrated meat of the fruit. I say meat, the flesh of the fruit. So it's not a nut. So it would be okay. For those of you needing to avoid sugar for, especially for diabetic purposes, something like that, even your natural sugars, I would say use allulose or pure stevia. So make sure if it's stevia, it's not a blend of like sucralose, aspartame, maltodextrin, xylitol, any of those. Make sure it's, pure stevia. Those are going to be your sweetener substitutes that aren't going to spike blood sugar, and they don't have, kind of the negatives of your artificial sweeteners. And so the bottom line from all of this is just to remember that holiday meals are not a daily occurrence. The foods you choose to enjoy and indulge on is not going to make or break your progress. You're not eating these foods every single day. So I want you to enjoy the food, enjoy the time with your loved ones, and try your best not to stress too much over food choices. So I hope this was helpful. I hope I either provided you with some ideas or just that my tips were helpful. And I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving.